Hi everyone, in this very short video I'm gonna show you how to write your first module or a smart contracts in Move. So first, what is Move? Move is a language, is a brand new language, very similar to Rust or with Rust syntax that allows you to write smart contracts for a number of brand new blockchain ecosystem or DAG based networks. So one of the famous one is Sui, SUI, another one is Aptos, and we have a number of different ones based on this concept. So Move is a base language there and allow you to make a smart contracts. We call the smart contracts here modules. And the syntax is very similar to Rust. So if you're familiar with Rust, then it's easy to basically start programming this language and making new apps and apps for these ecosystems. So here is main GitHub of this project. You can find a lot of examples here. I aim to basically show you the basic of that and how to quickly you can put your hands on the wheel and start basically writing some codes. So I found, one of the fastest ways to use Move Playground. There is a playground with this address. You can actually find that and you can mess around with the language. So first thing we are going to do, we make a new project and I explain you the structure of project and how it works. We call this a basic project, whatever, basic contract. So when you make a project either through VSC and your terminal or here on this playground, you do have this kind of structure. You have one folder for sources that you put your source files with the extension of .move. Then we have test files for unit testing. And then we have a TOML files like cargo TOML file. It's very similar. So this ecosystem, this playground actually is, how can I say, Aptos oriented, but the structure doesn't matter. So for basics are similar. So you can actually use the same code almost for Sui. But it seems at the time of recording this video, Aptos community is more active in basically providing documents for the language and so forth. So anyway, so let's make our first module or a smart contract here. We call this like hipzip, the name of this channel. And as you can see, by default, it has this extension, but you can also make it on your terminal and create this one. So, like I said before, so any program here or smart contracts is called module. So we start with the keyword module. And we need to provide an address for that. So because this is just a test environment, I just give this address. I would say 1, and then you specify the name of your contract or program. I would call this, let's say forum. Let's say we want to design a forum, but this is not actually a whole forum. I try to make it very short, so we just get some idea about what's going on in the language. All right, and inside of this scope, then we said, okay, what do we need to have? Any basically type here. A struct is a critical command and statement here, allow you to make a struct like Rust or like C++ and other languages. So a struct here is like acting like a kind of a struct in Rust, or if you want to talk about Java, like kind of class. Okay, so you can have like a number of properties and implementation of function for that. So I would call declare a struct. I would call this user. So for example, if you want to design various apps or different applications, we usually have some users, right? And it can actually get dropped, it can be removed for the but if you want to have something permanent, then we should not use this keyword. And then we have some field here. So let's say we have a person and each person has kind of user ID, let's say, and type of user ID. So we have various, we have actually limited number of primitives data types here. We have like unsigned or U8, U16, U64 and 128. So we just use basically U8 and we just go with this simple one basically property here. So, and the other thing, we want to design some function that act on this struct and, for example, assign or read some property here. very simple stuff. We make it public. Public means it's external, like Solidity, how we have external or public basically functions, similar to that. So anybody on the network can access and invoke this function. So for security perspective, I mean, if you make a real life smart contracts, DeFi contract, you got to be careful about your the domain of basically access, because if it's something public, means a hacker, a malicious user can also invoke that. So anyway, but this is a simple, educative type of a smart contract here. So let's say we add that set ID and like Rust function, we said, okay, what do you want to get new ID, and this parameter is also U8, and what it returns like U8 as well. This is our function, and let's define a variable from our struct. I would call that user, and it's gonna be based on the struct we have, and here we have user ID, and user ID would be assigned by our parameter here, which is new ID. That's pretty much it. Of course, we can have numerous property here and more complex, basically nested structures, but I try to put it simply for anyone who is new in programming or is unfamiliar with Rust, but hopefully it should be useful. And we might be interested in showing some stuff. I mean, we want to return some stuff, and then we said, okay, return let's say user, and it's user ID. Okay, so as you know, in Rust you can also basically skip return, and that means actually return here, but for the sake of simplicity we just add return, and so on. So we have the function, we have struct, we have the module, so we are actually ready to go. So let me actually print out the result also in terminal here. So in order to do so, I use debug, and it's kind of cool feature like logging or debugging, that similar things we have like in Solidity or JavaScript. So we have similar things here, and then here we pass the reference, and it's gonna be user ID here. So we need to actually bring this crate here, or this library over here as well. So in order to do so, similar to Rust, I use standard library, and I bring debug. So it allows me to actually write my code and test my code easier. I mean, we have also similar feature in Solidity, and we can use external basically libraries to log stuff basically in our console and be able to mess around with that, or use like event or emits to see the stuff basically on chain. But here you can also use debug and make our life easier. So let's actually build that and make sure there is no bug or something. Bound, yeah, okay, maybe user ID. Okay, it's good to go. And so we could actually do it. Now let's write a test and see how we can unit test our simplistic module or smart contract, and and test that. So in order to write a unit test like Rust, we have basically test here. We said, okay, we have a test, this is function, and this is test user from, or something like this, and then we can use assert, similar to Rust unit testing if you're familiar with that. And then we have set ID, and if we set, for example, let's say 17, it must be equal to 17. have something like that. Okay, let me clean up here a little bit. So build again, and then we can actually use test our code, and it's passed. Alright guys, so yeah, that was basically a short video regarding move. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this type of content, you can write write for me in the comment section, or you can drop me messages or email. Then I can make more videos about move. So that was my thought about move. It seems it's kind of simplistic, nice language. However, it's basically in progress at the moment based on my understanding. But it's relatively simple, especially if you're familiar with Rust, and that's all it. Yeah, thank you very much for your attention, and don't forget to follow me and subscribe and so forth. So thank you very much. Have a good time.